On this episode of Hands on Cars, Kevin's buddies show up to help do the bodywork on the Camaro. Then he sprays it in Eastwood High Build Primer-Surfacer and gets a ride in an awesome unrestored '59 Impala.
Hey guys, Kevin Tetz for Hands on Cars. Well, Z-Sled looks a lot different than the last time you saw it. That's because it is a lot different. We are well on our way to having an excellent foundation for the paint job on this car. There's still some blocking to do, but we wanted to show you what goes into it. Just like all the episodes of Hands on Cars, we want to show you some good tech, and Eastwood's saying is do the job right. And we want to show you how to do the job right, because we're doing it right on Z-Sled. And the problem was, it was about 100, maybe even 150 hours worth of work that had to happen to get it to this point. So I've got this band of brothers that, I don't know, they always come in and kind of save my butt when I'm in a time crunch. I love these guys for it. They're good friends, and on top of that, they're really good at what they do. TC Penick, Chris Slee, Randy Jones, Jeff Roop, Steve Longacre, Jeff Gallagher, John Bouchard. He's a mechanic. He's an ace engine builder, but he'll come in and pitch in when we got to do body work, and he doesn't care. He's an equal opportunity knucklehead like the rest of us. And these guys bring to the table excellent craftsmanship, great camaraderie, good friendship, and we just had a big fun time. There's more than one right way to do this, and we're going to show it to you on this episode of Hands on Cars. It's really straight. It's really flat. You can see perfectly the low spots and the high spots. So now, before I slather it up with a bunch of filler, now I can get my metal a little bit straighter and get it ready for filler. This is the particularly good use of this Fairmount dolly. The contour matches the contour of the fender and the panel that we're trying to recreate. Gives me something to have contact with and do a hammer on dolly technique.
Now that the fender's in better shape, I'm going to move on to the sail panel. I can't get behind it with a hammer and dolly, so I'm going to use a stud welder like this one from Eastwood to pull the dents out. You just weld the studs onto the metal and then pull them with a slide hammer. Eastwood even sells a DIY version that attaches to your MIG welder, so you don't need a separate machine. When the dent is removed, just snip the studs and grind it flat.
That's horrible. Low, high, low, high, low, high. It sounds like I'm in Hawaii. 3, 2, 1, plastic. Okay, I went down, everybody went up. Won't go big enough there. How big is your head? My favorite Fairmount hammer is the one with a pick end and a low crown face on the hammer. And what that allows me to do direct the blows with a subtle, even pressure and push the metal where I want it to go.
Chris Slee from Kiwi Customs is trying to get the hood to match the height of the fenders. With a little bit of help and a little bit of leverage, thanks to a piece of 2x4, we're able to tweak the hood just enough to get the crown to match the fender. Once the hood is the correct height, Chris uses the MIG 175 to add some metal to the edge of the fender so it lines up with the back of the hood. And these cars never did that from the factory.
All right, you may notice that the underside of this deck lid is red, and the car was white if you've been following the Z-Sled build along. Well, this is the original deck lid, and it's been hit more times than Joe Louis. It's messed up, it's sprung, it's been involved in a rear-end collision, and it's rusty. So, thank you very much to Molt's Used Auto Parts up in New York State. They sent us some great F-body parts. Believe it or not, up in the Northeast, we have some rust-free parts come down. Thank you, Molt's.
TC from Bay 1 Customs is showing his method to get perfect panel gaps every time. You start by putting soft edge foam tape underneath the gaps. This is to keep the body filler from falling into the gap too far. Next, apply a foundation coat of Eastwood's Fiberglass short strand filler. While it's still a little soft, you take a paint stick with a razor blade taped to each side, which will give you a 4mm gap, and slice along your panel gap.
But filler, it just got a bad name over the years. People just use it wrong.
Well, they use it wrong. And if you use it like this, like you're not building a car out of it, I mean, there's no crime in it, right?
Yep, and then we've got a tooth bond, a chemical bond.
Yep. And then, so you're getting haters on your video online, people?
Well, people say lame-ass bodywork, stuff like this. But the lead is a thing of the past. I mean, this we put this on there and do it right, and seal it off. It'll be there from now on.
Yeah, they used to do amazing things made out completely out of lead, and you know, there's huge mill thickness in that. And this, we're not abusing it. It's just making the gaps better. I mean, nobody gets away with all metal work anymore. Nobody does that.
No, and this will be no thicker than the recommendation of the product and what it's made and designed to do, and then we'll put a lightweight filler over top of it.
Yeah. I'm Kevin Tetz, and I endorse this method.
Let it sit until it hardens enough to block, and then block over the panel gaps. Leave the strip you cut in the gap to prevent the edges from rounding off. Then when you're satisfied with your blocking, remove the piece that you cut out with the razor blades on the stick. You can then wrap the mixing stick with 80 grit, which will give you a perfect 5mm gap, and then when you're done smoothing your gap, remove the foam tape.
Good Lord.
What?
You got such a big head to have nothing in it.
I guess that's how they grow.
That like just swallowed me up.
Chris Slee is using a shrinking method to repair a stretched or domed out part of the quarter panel. With a torch, heat an area about the size of a quarter until it's cherry red. Back the area with a dolly and hit around the outside edge of the area that you've heated, pushing the metal towards the center where it's soft and malleable. Make sure you don't do hammer on dolly on the red spot or you will peen it out and stretch it further. Once you're satisfied, cool it with water or quench it, and then finish it up with a hammer and dolly.
That little torch you were using, it doesn't get hot enough quick enough and in a concentrated enough area.
Now we got what, right here.
Yeah, that's when you're shrinking stuff, you tend to end up chasing it. You know, you chase it, you end up with lots of little ones because you can't do one great big shrink.
Yeah, I was chasing the bark.
So,
TC is fixing the composite spoiler with a fiberglass repair kit from Eastwood. After cutting it into strips, apply your matting and soak it with resin using a disposable paintbrush. Once the outside is hardened, you can remove the piece and do the back side of the repair and then finish it up with conventional body filler techniques.
I thought it went on top. This is the bumper, right? This a bumper? It's a bumper, ain't it? That's okay.
That's anti-sway bar, it's a roll bar.
Ian told me this was the bumper.
So tell me your name.
Randy Jones.
That was an easy question.
What brings you down here?
A minivan.
So TC talks about unrealistic goals. We have to do body work on an entire car in a day's time. Is this something that you're used to?
Yeah. When it involves your vehicles.
What brings you here today?
Well, Randy and his minivan.
Still have nightmares? Yes, I'm doing good with therapy.
Well, I love Eastwood, and most of their products I can depend on pretty well. A lot of the products I get at my local shop, they change a lot of their products and use different vendors, and then I'll use their product and it might be a little inferior to what I was used to or whatever, but Eastwood seems to be pretty consistent. So if I use their seam sealer or their Contours High Build Surfacer, whatever it is, it's pretty consistent, pretty good product. And Eastwood's actually going to help us out on this seamer project. They're going to do our flat clear and all of our top coats, and also their new tri-flow radiator. We're going to install that.
I'm Chris Slee from Kiwi Classics and Customs.
How long have you been working on cars?
All my life.
That's 50, 60 plus years.
Thank you, John.
So what do Eastwood tools mean to Kiwi Classics?
Well, you don't have to walk very far to stumble into some at my shop. You know, we've got a bunch of their welders, we use a bunch of their paint products, body products, right down to hammer and dollies. The body products work. You know, I've got cars that have been out there with it on there for a number of years now, and they're standing up well.
John Bouchard engines. I just didn't care nothing about the brakes or the transmission or the axles or the windows. I don't care if they roll up and down or not. If you got paint, that's your grade. If you don't, that's your problem. 1,000 horsepower LS engine used to be a race motor, now it's a street motor, so.
With the 6-liter in Z-Sled, you spec'd out the cam, so what kind of power numbers do you expect from this engine?
That's roughly a 400-ish horse motor from the factory with the cam, the headers, the intake and tune. I bet it'd pull 500 on the dyno. I bet it'll pick up 100 with what we've added.
My name is Jeff Root. I work with Bay One Customs in Springfield with TC Penick. Alchemy, you know, you're kind of making gold from the metals here. And the fact that so many people think this is magic, and you know, it's just basic paying attention to what you're doing. I think that's what I really enjoy about it. You can impress the heck out of somebody with just something you do naturally, you know.
Safe sex. Okay, here's one of the fun things about working with a bunch of guys that really know what they're doing. Kiwi showed me a trick where when your paper loads up with filler, a little wire brush, it doesn't really interfere with the grit of the paper, and it cleans it out, gives you brand new 36 grit so you can keep on blocking. That's a neat technique.
Hands on Cars is brought to you by the Eastwood Company. When you're restoring a car, truck, or motorcycle, Eastwood has everything you need to do the job right. Eastwood, since 1978.
We're downtown Pottstown, Pennsylvania at Wheels in Motion. This beautiful old deco building was a car dealership for 83 years, and now it's a full-service collision center and custom restoration shop. Rumor has it there's some awesome Survivor cars in the back. Let's go take a look. Now the showroom here is immaculate, and the cars are changed out all the time. Today, it's restored and unrestored Corvettes. Now the history of this place is unbelievable. You just don't see this anymore, and it's beautifully documented in still frame photography on the back wall. But what we're really here to see is untouched, unrestored cars from the 50s and 60s. Let's go. Mike, you got a real nice clean shop here, and obviously late model collision repair mixed in with a bunch of classics, including that F-body Camaro over there, which is near and dear to my heart with the Z-Sled project.
Right.
But tell me about the unrestored cars. What's this?
63 Impala Super Sport convertible, 38,000 miles, original owner. He parked it in 1974, and we just drug it out of the garage, and here it is.
Cool. This bubble top?
61 bubble top. I bought it in 1999. And I finally sold to my son when he was 16 years old. He just shined it up a little bit. He put lancers and wide white walls. He's getting ready to cruise.
Very cool. Man, I could stand here and talk to you about these cars all day long.
Me too.
Can you show me the 59?
Show you the 59. I'll go one better. Let's take it for a ride.
I like that. So is this manual steering, power steering?
Power steering, yes. Manual brakes, power steering.
Yep.
It's a 283 Turbo Glide. And the Turbo Glide doesn't have gears, it has 3 torque converters. And you won't feel a shift, it's more just a transition between each converter.
So all those ads in Popular Science magazine that called these 59 Impalas whispery smooth, that's what that was about, right?
That's right, the Turbo Glide. And they got a bad rap back in the day because a lot of them were behind 348s,
right,
and they didn't hold up well. But behind the 283, they're actually a pretty cool transmission.
Yeah. Well, this car is just so cherry. The headliner, you could lie to me and say you replaced this stuff, and the carpet, it's just unbelievable, man. What a time capsule.
It is. Let me tell you a little about the car. The car was sold new at my shop. It was a Chevrolet dealer in 1959. But when I was a young kid, this belonged to a local gas station owner. And on the days he brought this car to work, you weren't allowed near the air pump to put air in your bicycle tires.
Okay.
And I always admired it. It was an unusual color. And that was in the 60s.
Wow.
It was in a heated garage for 44 years. He passed away in like 1989. So it literally sat from 89 to 2012 when I bought it. He had all the mileage written down, and he'd put 100 miles a year on it. So the car never got driven, but who'd have known that a few years later I'd wind up buying the building where it came from new.
What car has that provenance? That's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah. So the colors of these cars, you might think that people in 1959 were colorblind, but
Yeah.
but the truth is, you got a palette, and you could order this car in any color combination that you want, as long as it was in the color choice guide, right?
Right.
So somebody chose this weird bluish gray dash color and the rose-colored exterior.
You have the cameo coral. I didn't know, but I found out through taking it to different shows. It's a very rare color on Impalas. Being its original paint and 34,000 miles, it's probably the only one around that's this color, unrestored.
Yeah. Now, you and I are both old enough to have gone to drive-in movies when we were kids. Probably
That's right.
teenagers too.
Yep.
So this car makes me think drive-in movies. Drive-in movies make me think of ridiculously inappropriate things happening in the back seat. The back seat. But I'm looking at it, and I don't see. I see original upholstery that's in pretty good shape. So I think we're safe.
We're safe. And remember how many people you could put in the trunk of this car? Remember
there was contest.
To get into the. This one would have definitely held a lot of people.
Yep.
And a thing that, I do my research and stuff, the car only weighs 3,600 pounds.
Really?
And you would expect it to be 4,000.
Oh, I would have nodded my head and said if you said 4,500 pounds.
And I was in disbelief, like it has to be wrong, but every piece of documentation I could find is 3,600 pounds.
Wow, and a late model GT Mustang weighs about 36 and a half.
With all that plastic.
Yeah.
And, this is all steel.
Well, you were talking about the fins earlier on, and my dad had a 59 El Camino when we were kids.
Yep.
And my dad and mom would stress over that car because of me and my brother Blaine, because my mom would stress over us riding our bikes around that car with our bicycles because these fins are deadly frickin' weapons.
Yes.
And my dad would stress over us riding our bikes around the car because the handlebars would
scratch his paint. So Mom was worried about your health, and Dad was worried about the car. I don't know if I mentioned, Kevin, where we're riding right now is High Street in Pottstown, and from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, this was literally the cruising capital of the East Coast.
No kidding.
Everybody came here with their hot rods. They had illegal drag racing out on the bypass, and it was really an attraction. Of course, in the last few years, it's died down. They changed the lane configurations, and nobody does it anymore. But for 40 years, this was the place to cruise.
Yeah.
Kevin, you want to drive it back?
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Okay.
You're here for today?
Yes, I do. Hope I can see over the steering wheel. Wow, effortless steering, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I grew up in British Columbia, Canada.
Okay,
My family's from Canada. I moved down to the States in 1984. So for me to hear and read about, Woodward Avenue and cruising California, I'm on High Street with a beautiful unrestored car cruising. This is awesome, man. There's just something about being in a car like this that it's almost like a form of meditation.
Oh, you'll like this too, Kevin. And of course we have the tube radio. It needs to warm up.
Yep.
A lot of people don't remember that. Well, we only got AM. So what I bought is, remember these from the 70s, a Spark-O-Matic.
I remember Spark-O-Matic.
Converter, piped it through the original tube radio. So we have AM, FM through the original sounding 59 radio with the speaker in the center of the back seat and the speaker up front. So there's that.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, I don't want to run this odometer up anymore. I'm going to turn in.
We're clocking on the miles.
To the dealership here, and I just want to say thanks, man. This is
just pull her up front, Kevin.
Absolute thrill to be able to drive this car, and I thank you.
I thank you for coming in.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Huge thanks to everybody that helped on the putty party for Zed Sled. We've got it bodyworked, and collectively we've got about 80 hours into getting this thing ready for the next stage, which is high build polyester surfacer. Poly surfacers to me are the last step in bodywork because they build like crazy and allow you to finely block and flatten everything out, crisp up the style lines, and they don't shrink back, and it's the perfect undercoat for your final sanding primers. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These are 2 pucks of overmix of a 2K urethane and high build polyester. Look at the difference. The 2K, well, it's already started to shrink and suck itself back and kind of crumble and fall apart even after a couple of weeks. However, the hockey puck of high build poly, you could hammer nails with this sucker. And check this out. It hasn't shrunk back a bit. They were both shot, and the overmix was in the same container, the PPS cup. That's shrunk back quite a bit, and it's crumbling. It's continuing to shrink over its cure cycle. This stuff, This is what I want as my foundation for primer surfacer on the body of Z-Sled. Now, your polyester surfacers, it's really important that you have it thoroughly agitated and mixed. If you got a shaker, good for you. If you don't, just stir the heck out of it, make sure nothing comes up on the stick. Now, there's a mix ratio for this. It's 5% by volume. Well, if you don't have a scale, it's a little hard to tell. Here's the easy thing that I've figured out. They give you 2 of these per gallon of poly surfacer, 4 quarts, 2 quarts for each. I just mix a quart and pour the half of this in, and you got the right mix ratio. Pretty simple. You don't have nitrile gloves, get them from Eastwood. Protect it. No glove, no love. And the pour-it lids solve a problem that I've had for years in body shops, and that's how to get your surfacer out of a full gallon. It's a really trick setup. Ready to pour. So I'm mixed. I'm pulling a full quart. A little more. All right, now I've got an accurate mix ratio. I'm using a huge orifice gun. This is a 2.5 tip, and it sprays out, well, it sprays out pretty aggressively. You're going to use a lot of it, so make sure you got enough for your project. Don't forget your mask. Spray technique with a high build poly surfacer is very different than paint. Your gun speed is slow, your overlap is about 75%, and you're fairly close to the substrate. Take your time spraying and don't worry about stacking the primer surfacer. That's what this stuff is made for. You won't get pinholes, and it will rarely ever run on you. When you're priming large areas of a car like this, you're not concerned so much about overspray or keeping your wet edges down. That's kind of immaterial. You're focusing on the panel that you're spraying and then moving on to the next one. In essence, you're zone priming at the same time as you're priming the entire panel. Keep in mind that a good portion of this surfacer is going to end up on the floor because it's not paint, it's body filler. You just happen to be spraying it on the panel. 3 coats should be plenty enough for an initial blocking and to allow you to see how straight the car is. We will probably end up doing a second session of poly primer before we move on to a 2K. When you're wanting to make a vehicle as straight as we want to make Z-Sled, I consider this a mandatory and necessary step. So we've got a gallon of contour high build poly surfacer on this car. Can we sand it and paint it? No. The work is, well, it's about halfway done because most of this stuff, just by the nature of the beast, is going to end up in powder on the floor. So we're going to use a spray guide coat everything, block the heck out of it, see if there's any pinholes we missed, any waves, any dents that we missed, and then move on to the high build 2K, which thankfully Eastwood makes in black, and then we'll block that again, and then, and only then, we'll be ready for paint. Sound like a bunch of work? It is. Is it going to be worth it? You bet your butt. To see this car as a complete piece of machinery is beautiful. I love it. Z-Sled has been sitting for a couple of days. The high build contour poly is cured enough to block, and we're blocking with 120. Very aggressive because why? We're still shaping, we're not sanding, we're not prepping for paint. That comes after the black 2K urethane primer surfacer. So I like to have an arsenal of different sanding blocks. I have my dura-blocks and I have my soft sanders for a couple of different reasons. The dura-blocks they're more firm and they have, I don't know, a lot of great shapes. The soft sanders are extremely light and offer just a little bit more variety because your goal here is matching the shape and size of the block to the panel that you're blocking. For instance, this has a slight crown, this has a slight crown. As it gets more aggressive in that cove, well, you got a different block. So more tools in the toolbox. It's fun. Let's start rubbing some primer. Now the power of the guide coat is going to show itself really quickly here. Look at my pattern. I'm making an X.
These aren't my rules, but they're good rules. We've done our work right. We've shaped the panels properly with our fillers, and this is just refining that shape. And you can see what's happening here. This, well, it's flat. That's your low spots. Those are the spots that you need to keep working on. Now, I'm coming over a transition here that I want a firmer block for because I want this to be dead flat and level. So, a dura-block that's square. Here we go. Look here, this is low, this is high. You have to use a guide coat. It just helps. I never recommend using your project as a workbench, so I'm breaking my own rules right here. This right here is shaping up really nice, and if you're a Camaro guy, you know that this is a removable panel and that we've welded this seam here just for a nice clean look. And it's just going to make all the difference in the world. It's one of those subtle things. And I want to give a shout out to the guys at NastyZ28.com, both on the Facebook page as well as the NastyZ28 website. They've been great support. I joined the forum and they welcome me in. They are digging the Z-Sled project. So, hey, all you guys out there, good luck on your own projects, and thanks for supporting this one with us and Z-Sled and Eastwood and KT. And it's just nice to have a good community of people to sort of hang online with and share ideas and stuff. So that's just one of those other benefits of the Book of Face and the interweb. It's a great resource. We're not done blocking, so we're going to stop talking. There's another thing I wanted to show you, and this question comes up all the time. As a matter of fact, a guy hit me on Facebook and said, well, how do you keep from sanding all these style lines down flat? Here's how. You work up against them. Use your guide coat to the best advantage that you possibly can. I'll show you. What I'm doing is blocking up to this style line and not past it. You got to show some self-control here, but block up to it and not past it. And right here where it disappears into the wheel arch, kind of the same way, you're helping it along. And now I'm on the bottom side. Again, blocking up to my style line. And right here, beware, be careful. Don't shave that line off. You want to respect those lines. Now you can see what I'm doing. I'm accentuating and perfecting this style line. We can also see that it's not perfectly straight. It wows out here, kind of thin there, so we can correct that. We can correct that with the poly. It's a wonderful thing. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you here. The guide coat is a visual guide that helps you refine your surface. There's another one. This is pre-painting prep in a pump sprayer, and I can literally wet check this stuff. I can look at it and I can sight it, and I can see whether it's straight or not. Check it out. Look at the reflection of my lights. If there was any waves in those lights, 8-foot fluorescent tubes, well, they'd be bumping and moving all over the place, but they're not. You're looking for the quality of the reflection. And that tells me that this area right here is going to be nice and flat, especially under a black paint job. Now, it's no doubt whatsoever, there's no question that blocking is a tremendous amount of work. However, it costs you time. That's all it costs you is time. And something like this, well, it's going to pay dividends. It's worth it. It's sandpaper, it's time, but the sense of accomplishment that you're going to get by blocking to this level, you know, it's going to pay dividends at the car show. And I don't know, if you've gotten to this stage in your project, congratulations, because you've shown true commitment and follow through, and
just like us with Z-Sled, you're going to have a nice, straight project. So, thanks for watching Hands on Cars. Hopefully next time you see this thing, we'll be shooting some color on it, and I'm looking forward to that. And on top of that, I'm looking forward to driving this silly sucker because it's going to be bad to the bone. Thanks.
On the next episode of Hands on Cars, Kevin beefs up the rear and brakes before visiting a hot rod shop that's building an AMX concept car.